What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Talk on the Tundra, a proud partner of the Eurostep Podcast Network and the Blue Wire family. As always, I am your host, Numac, and joining me this week to talk about the Christmas Day gift of a win the Packers found under the Christmas tree is Jordan Treske and special guest Ti Windisch. Fellas, how you doing?
Hello, I will speak first. I'm doing well. Packers won. They're still mathematically alive, as we all are.
I'm good. I saw today that even if they lose to the Vikings, we still might not be done with Miracle Run Watch. Apparently, according to ESPN Stats and Info or one of these such firms, there's 8 and 9 scenarios too. So I'm just glad that we can continue. Maybe if other stuff happens next week, there won't be. But I just hope that this can go on as long as possible because the Charlie trying to figure out Pepe Sylvia energy of Packers fans scheming this playoff berth is just incredible content.
Our elongated suffering might not be over just yet with a loss this week against the Vikings. I don't want to make it an 8 and 9 team. That just seems too NFC East for me of years past,
NFC
not
South
this year. NFC South of this year now.
South of you.
NFC West too.
Yeah.
Well, not the Niners are
good team. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I guess the Seahawks were the first team to do that. 9.
And then they
beat the Saints.
So
yeah.
Street of talking.
I love playoffs or playoff teams that are below 500. That is my favorite thing. No,
we could have 2.
We could have more.
There could be at least 2 this year if that scenario does play out. I think it needs a lot of Commanders and Giants losses and probably another Seahawks loss or 2. But woohoo!
Well, I think the scenario would be the Commanders would have to lose out. The Giants would have to beat the Commanders and lose their other game. Lions lose twice. Seahawks lose twice. And we'd have to beat the Lions, obviously.
Yeah.
But that's a lot of stuff to happen that I don't want to think about right now.
Yeah. Let's focus on winning games, including the one that
Packers
just won.
That's right. 26-20, the Packers surmount another comeback against a pretty good team, I'd say. Miami Dolphins. They've been decimated by injuries this year, but including one that happened this game that kind of led to that comeback, but unfortunately. But yeah, 26-20 behind another balanced attack. Rodgers had a touchdown and a pick, which the pick should have been overturned because it was definitely DPI, but in the first place. But overall, a good win to come back. I think they were losing, 20-13 after or before halftime. So we're going into halftime. So they ended up scoring 13 unanswered to win 26-20 down in Miami. And even though it was still cold down there, I think Aaron Jones was surprised at how cold it was. I think it was only 45 degrees. So that probably had some good stuff to do with it too, that it wasn't 95 and sweltering during that game.
Yep. Good win. Good second half, I should say. First half was all sorts of chaos, the kind of chaos that we have come to expect from your 2022 Green Bay Packers. But yeah, there was a stark turning point, I would say, in multiple ways. But I think on the day, the forced fumble and recovery by Jaron Reed, who, we'll get into cheeseboard later. But fantastic game by him. And that kind of just turned everything around. The fact that they limited the Dolphins to 0 second half points, I don't think they've done that all year. I'd have to go back and peruse all the box scores, but
that sounds right. Vibes-wise, it sounds right.
Yeah. Even that terrible Packers-Buccaneers game where it was like field goals were the only saving grace for either team.
Right.
I still don't think that was possible, but yeah, Packers somehow, some way they have still managed to be again mathematically alive and getting through Miami, who certainly had their way with the Packers in the first half. That was to see it so turn on its head so radically. Obviously, led to the Packers coming back in such a weird, crazy way because it wasn't even it didn't even feel that definitive to me. It was oh, they just skated through, and we'll get more into that.
Well, it definitely felt like that because they kept wasting away great field position. Like Keishawn Nixon had himself another great game, returning the ball off of kickoffs, only to get hurt and have Romeo Dobbs return the rest of the way, which you could definitely tell by the field position starts that way. But I think when I rewatched the game, he had, was it ready or the second kickoff? He went like pretty much all the way down to like the 9-yard line.
Yeah.
And they got a field goal. And they got a field goal out of it.
They lost yards that drive.
Oh,
I think it was like minus. Now I have to look. It was like minus.
You're
8.
right, because Rodgers got sacked.
Yep.
that's right. Oh yeah, in my notes, second and goal, Rodgers takes a 15-yard sack with the worst decision ever. Just get rid of it.
Yeah, it was pretty unbelievable. I would say overall, I thought his game, I think we'll get into it, I thought his game was good. And I think one of you already mentioned, like, spreaded the ball around, which I think is just how they have to play with this receiver group. I mean, Christian Watson, who also got banged up, had a coming out party. Romeo Dobbs kind of had one earlier, but neither of them are like Justin Jefferson, right? Or I guess, more fittingly for this Devontae Adams even, like they need to move the ball around. They did that. But that play was just like, what are you doing, man? Like, just throw the ball away. Like it wasn't like a total blindside. He knew what was happening. And when you're that close to the end zone, all you really have to do is like throw a dart through the crossbar, and it's never going to be grounding in that situation. Right. So really, really bad play. Yeah, they've had first and goal at the 9, a rush for 4 yards, and then the sack for minus 13, and then an incomplete pass, and then that was it. And so frustrating drive, but the Packers found a way.
They did find a way. And I think we'll start with the defense, just like I should say start where we're kind of going, but we'll talk about the defense in depth to begin with, because this first half was abysmal defensively. The ensuing drive of that field goal that the Packers kicked was a one-play, 84-yard touchdown from Tua Tagovailoa to Jalen Waddle. And it happened because they just didn't press Jalen or Tyreek Hill the entire game, rather, but especially in the first half. I think it was Jair was covering Waddle on that. Yeah, Jair was giving Jalen 10 yards of cushion, like he was barely even in the TV frame, and Jalen Waddle doesn't even go upfield. He just takes 2 steps and cuts in, and off to the races he goes, outspeeding the rest of the Packers defense. It's like, okay, maybe, just maybe, if we press the receivers, he could have gotten that off, and the timing would have thrown off from there. Would have been 80 for a touchdown, but who's to say? Who among us has stopped Jalen Waddle or Tyreek Hill before, besides the Bills, besides the Niners, besides the Chargers? Regardless. So that was definitely the biggest thing I was watching throughout the entire game was our Razul and Jair at the line of scrimmage getting hands on these receivers, and they weren't. I think the only person I saw get hands on a receiver was late in the game. Ennis Gaines pressed Trent Sherfield Jr. at the line, and they didn't throw it to him, so it didn't really matter. But at least I saw hands on somebody.
Yeah, the Waddle touchdown was particularly deflated because it came after Keishawn Nixon's amazing return, and the Packers got 3 points out of it. And then Jair Alexander's attempt to come from the other side of the field and tackle Waddle, and it was just like, it was like the equivalent of pressing the square button, because I'm a PlayStation person, and Madden, and just like wiping out completely, just like your timing was way off. Even it's reflected in the box score. Like the Dolphins had their passing offense is still like, it took a turn, but it was still very good. Like they were still getting exactly where they wanted. They were finding soft spots in the Packers coverage. It wasn't just Waddle just, scooting for how many yards for his touchdown. Tyreek Hill was doing damage. Waddle was doing damage. Mike Gesicki had a couple catches too, and Sherfield, like, sure enough, had a good couple catches himself. Like there was no real resistance until the second half, and even then, like, it kind of reminded me of the second Bears game, where they forced these turnovers, and you're still looking at like, well, Justin Fields still had 5 incompletions. Like it's a couple bad throws, obviously, but for the most part, I think the Dolphins would have taken what they got out of Tua outside of the takeaways.
Right.
Tua in this game, the second half was a nightmare, as we'll get into. 310 yards still. Jalen Waddle, 5 catches, 143. Tyreek Hill, 4 catches, 103. So 2 guys caught 9 balls, and they got 246 yards out of it. Like, you're talking about a defense that wasn't prepped or wasn't playing the way that we saw other defenses play to take these guys away. Again, the second half, Tua just threw the ball to the Packers as much as he did to the Dolphins. They still had 2 guys. Again, not random guys. Like, there should be scouting reports on these guys. 246 yards. Like, that's unbelievable.
Yeah, it's absolutely ridiculous. Like, given almost half of Jalen Waddle's, or over half of Jalen Waddle's yards came on the 84-yard strike, and Tyreek Hill had half his yards come on the 52-yard strike.
Yeah.
And so we still see this team getting blown by and being susceptible to big pass plays. But, like, that's why we wanted Joe Barry to tell them to press the receivers and get hands on them. Because if you can press them and get their hands on them, the timing gets off, like particularly Tua's timing gets off throwing to them, and just doesn't allow them to run right past you. Like, it was so frustrating seeing Tyreek Hill just start the line of scrimmage and not have anybody touch him as he goes and catches a slant for like 17 yards.
Yep.
Like, that happened like 2-3 times. It's just like, man, like it was out there to do. Like, the game plan was out there. Everyone was refusing to do it, and it ended up working out. But arguably, the only reason it did work out was because Tua, unfortunately, got another concussion, which is, for the first part, in my opinion, inexcusable for the Dolphins training staff to not catch this and to not think something's up after they saw his head hit the ground. I think it was on a Preston Smith pursuit and tackle.
Yes.
But it really sucks for Tua. I hope he makes the right decision and shuts down for the year so that he can get right and has the right people in his corner. But yeah, I think Ty, you had the tweet. If I can't find it quick.
I got it. I didn't tweet it. I found it. It's from Warren Sharp at Sharp Football. So it's the play where he gets wrapped up, clean hit, but his head basically bounces off the turf, which is always a bad sign. But it wasn't any sort of a bad hit. It just he fell poorly, right. I think. So it's a play at 2:40 in the third quarter?
Second.
2:40 and a half. Yeah, 2:40 to play until half. Pre-concussion Tua, 9 for 12, 229 yards, 19 yards per attempt, 1 touchdown, 0 interceptions. Post that play, or post-concussion, if that is when it happened, 7 for 13, 81 yards, 6.2 yards per attempt, 0 touchdowns, 3 picks. So all 3 of the really damaging, and I'd say not all were totally inexplicable, but there was certainly an element of that between the 3 picks. Some great play, too, especially, Devondre Campbell's was awesome. But certainly, I don't think that's just noisy stats. I think there's probably something to that play and now him being in concussion, which is confirmed as of this morning, right? Or even earlier?
Yeah.
I don't mean to laugh. I was laughing as you were going through those stats. I saw Numac's face when you said the first pre-concussion, and Numac just goes, he took this big sigh because he's just like, Joe fucking Barry.
He's on pace for 500 yards.
I know. And the thing too, so I watched the game, spoiler, I watched the game knowing that he had a concussion after the fact. And so I saw the clip before I actually watched the game. And so when you watch the game knowing that Tua basically has a concussion for the last 32 minutes of the game, it definitely showed. And it was just the way that he's throwing the ball, it is very noticeable that there's something different about him. And just and not to be all armchair quarterback, about I could have seen it and all that stuff. But this is his 3rd concussion this year, I believe.
Yeah. After having 2 in 4 days.
And yeah, exactly. And yeah, that's not going to take anything away from this Packers game for me necessarily. But when you just watch the game knowing that and see how the performance just completely turns on its head, There's definitely some context involved in just like how things were very different for the Packers defense, specifically in the second half.
Right. And to sort of wrap up the conversation on the defense with these turnovers, the all three interceptions by Tua were definitely not great throws, but the two between Dre and Razul were just great plays too. Like the one to Jair, it was definitely just an overthrow into like quintuple coverage. So that's just like how that kind of stuff happens once in a while. But the one to Devondre Campbell, it was great seeing him like be the field general and tell I think it was Darnell Savage to cover the fullback going out into the flat so that he could cover the middle of the field. It's so good. Like you can see him, he's like so animated and telling Savage as to where to play, and then immediately goes to talk to Darnell Savage, tell him to get over. Raheem Mostert isn't even looking for the ball is one of the bigger issues of that interception. So he either gets Raheem Mostert like lit up in that catch or it's intercepted like it is. Mm-hmm. And so, but edge of like tip of the fingers, great catch, just an awesome play defensively by him. But then the Razul play was definitely just a great bait as to thinking he's playing man when he's playing zone. Like that was just a really good just cornerback play as opposed to a bad throw by Tua.
Yeah.
One more thing. Go ahead, Jordan.
I was just gonna say that Douglas pick was just like he's had a very inconsistent year. I mean, that could be said about anybody on the Packers defense until the last few weeks. But that was like instantly like what made Razul like this cult hero last year of just like turning games on a head and just like you say that, but like he certainly defined that for the Packers defense last year, and to see that happen when still the game was in kind of reach for the Dolphins, certainly that was a sight to see.
Right.
Yeah, I think the play the play calling on that last Packers drive before that, I remember being like pretty frustrated with them ending up with a field goal and how everything went on that drive, and then it ends up just not mattering because right away, pick and then game over, which is like, wow, that was, comforting for the Packers for sure. But real quickly on like the Tua and, it's inconceivable that he played. This shouldn't matter, but I think it does in the NFL when winning is so important. Like they have one of the best backup quarterbacks in the league too. Like they went out and got Teddy Bridgewater.
Right? Oh no,
Bridgewater, who's like has been a gap starter. I mean, he's not a starter you get excited about, but he's been a starter in this league too. Like not even talking about Minnesota. He's obviously different post injury, but like decent starter for the Broncos. Like he's gone around the league, and he missed also but was healthy for that game.
Also a quarterback who's had his injury history, unfortunately. Like another just snake-bitten QB. Yeah.
But, I mean, should have played the second half for sure.
Yeah, without a doubt. Yep. Even on like that last drive, there was like two plays there. The first one was Razul had a great tackle out on the edge to, I think it was like a 1 yard gain or loss, like right at the line of scrimmage. Just a great tackle, then follows it up with the pick. So, yeah, just a great end of the game for Razul. I lied. This is wrapping up the Packers defense talk. Great day for the run defense. Like it started off horrendous. 2 runs for 30 yards on the first 3-4 plays by Raheem Mostert. And I was getting flashbacks to the championship game in 2019. Like, oh boy, here we go. After that, this is from Andy Herman. If I can get the tweet open. Raheem Mostert, like I said, 2 carries for 30 yards to start the day. The rest of the day, 6 carries for 15 yards. And if you go with Jeff Wilson, it was 15 carries for 52 yards, 3.5 yards per carry. So after that first drive, they played the run really well, which could be in part that after that first drive, they had the big touchdown to Waddle. And then they found out that they can kind of just throw against the Packers. They didn't need to run the ball. And so that could be a part of it as to why they stopped running in the first half, and then they had 3 giveaways in the second half. But you take what you can get, and I think it was 82 yards total for the Packers. 18 carries for 82 yards total in the run game this week. So I'm all about that.
Yeah. Yeah, you got to take something away. And passing defense was what it was outside of the turnovers, but we were going into it talking about Mostert. Even Jeff Wilson's a very fine running back in his own right. We were thinking like this offense could easily do what the Eagles did a couple weeks ago. And it was looking
they were
like
on track to.
Exactly. It was looking like that, and things happened, and here we are. Packers won against the Dolphins in large part because their defense stopped them.
Yeah. Should we talk about that offense a little bit? Or no, go ahead, Ty.
Slight coming out party for my guy Devontae Wyatt and that defensive line. I know
big fan.
Jaron Reed is the guy that's getting the talk, and he had a great game as well. But I think the defensive line play, and I don't know if you guys saw, Dean Lowry was just put on IR, and a wide receiver
I did
from
not
the
see that.
Seahawks practice squad was signed. Someone who our friend Andy Herman of Packaday said he shared a tweet from before the season. He wanted this guy, but it is Bo Melton. But yeah, Dean Lowry, his calf injury has him on IR. Bo Melton, 7th round pick this year. Superb athlete. Peter Bukowski shared the Packers have a type. He has a 9.24 on the athlete score thing, the relative athletic score. Yeah.
RAS, yeah. I'm all about that. Like, if there's one thing we want, we need athletes at the receiver position as opposed to just like very plain Jane route runners. Like we have that in Christian Watson, Romeo Dobbs, so we can have more of those type of players. I'm all about it. But yeah, Devontae Wyatt had significant run in this game. I gotta find the PFF grades so I can see the snap count. Devontae Wyatt played 24 snaps this week, like in large part because Dean Lowry went down, but I thought he played really well. Like I saw myself like taking multiple notes of if he was getting double teamed at times for sure. I saw a couple plays he was, but if there's one thing I like about him, like amongst all the other things, is that he hustles. Like I saw one where he got double teamed and then he shed the block and tackled the running back from behind for like to hold him to like a 6-7 yard gain. But if he didn't, that running back had a chance to break a tackle and go for bigger.
Yeah.
And he's fast. Like he was moving for the big guy.
I was going to say speed as well. Him in open space he seems to move pretty well, which is encouraging and always surprised.
That was when he got drafted, or it was before he got drafted. When he was part of the scouting combine, it was him and Jordan Davis. They had to put him with the running backs because their speed was like in line with them, and rather than
that's
like
good.
A normal defensive lineman, which is like that's the thing. Like, and now knowing that Lowry's out essentially for the year,
right?
Put out your talented players. If you're playing for a playoff spot by some miraculous chance that they are still playing for a playoff spot. Devontae Wyatt's going to have to play more than 24 snaps now. And
yeah, that's good.
It's been a hard year for him. Obviously, I think I would have bet your first round pick, you would expect to have a more, expanded role. Maybe them coming along slowly with him was better for him just to kind of just get engaged and get up to speed, but it's certainly paying off right now. And that's all you want to see. You would just want to see something out of him rather than like, why are we talking about him be on the field for 8 snaps? Or why aren't we talking about him for be on the field for 8 snaps? Either way you want to take it. So yeah, to see him make plays the way he did, got a sack too, right? If I remember.
He did not. He had a hit in a hurry.
Yeah, that's right.
He had a hit in a hurry.
An H.
But still, two pressures and 24 snaps. Like I'll take that. Like that's pretty good.
So yeah, someone else than Kenny Clark getting through and pressuring the quarterback. Are you like you'll take it at this point?
Yeah, Kenny was getting doubled out of the game, and Devontae was definitely showing his acumen and making sure that pass rush wasn't gone away just because Kenny was getting doubled. So, but yeah, Dean Lowry only played 7 snaps. So if you're just assuming that Devontae Wyatt gets those 7 snaps, 30 snaps seems about right, to be honest. Like Quay, who's been like a starter pretty much all year, played 48. So given that Devontae Wyatt has not played all year, I'd say 30 snaps is about right. Like in that sort of range, again, is with Jaron Reed, it played 34. Kenny Clark played 40. So I'm fine with if he gets like to that 25-30 range of snap count, I'm totally fine with it.
How many did Slayton have?
20.
Yeah, okay. That kind of lines in because he was rotated in and out of there.
Yeah, he had a good game too. Nothing like worth analyzing, but he had a couple of high impact plays, half sacks, things like that. So, yeah. So about the offense a little bit. We touched on at the beginning, but just balanced offense. They were getting around to everybody. Al Lazard, despite the well documented feelings I had on him, had an all right day. 5 catches on 11 targets for 61 yards.
Just always blanketed and just making a great catch anyway. That's like his career highlights. It's going to be him, 2 guys right on him in every catch, and he's just like hauling him into his breadbasket.
Right. Like that's the highlight reel. And then you can make an equally length low light reel of him just dropping passes in the slant that hit him right in the hands.
Didn't have to talk about that as much, but yeah.
We do, Ty. I'm going to pound this table until he catches easy passes.
He hauled in 5 of his 11 targets. That's
less than half.
Not
or it's
great.
just it's less than half.
Less than half, yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, like it's just so good to know that they're doing what we think they should be doing in order to win, because we've seen it work. Like, I think, let's see, I'm pretty sure that Rodgers completed a pass to 10 different people today, or not today, during the game. Yeah, 10 people between Lazard, Watson, Dobbs, Big Dog, Patrick Taylor, Bobby, AJ Dillon, Aaron Jones, Randall Cobb, and Josiah DeGuara. Like, that's fine. That's good if you're targeting all of your receivers that you have. Besides, I think Samari Toure is the only one that comes to mind of a receiver who could have gotten targeted that didn't.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like, that's good. You got to keep the defense on their toes and spread this ball around and make plays when you're expected to. And looking at the targets and the receptions, I think Lazard had the biggest, not drops, but didn't do the most of his targets as opposed to the rest of the team.
Missed opportunities.
Yeah, thank you. Missed opportunities. Watson only had 2 more targets than receptions. Dobbs had 3 more. But then AJ Dillon missed 1 and Randall Cobb missed 1. So other than that, like, you're just really you're thankful that these lower on the depth chart guys like Josiah DeGuara, like Randall Cobb, are catching the ball when they're expected to. Like, Randall Cobb's always going to do it. He's Randall Cobb. But Patrick Taylor, 1 catch for 17 yards on 1 target. He did a lot with his opportunities. I think there was one play I retweeted it late Christmas night. I was rewatching the game and looking at tweets. He had a pass block rep that was insane. He absolutely chipped the linebacker. It blew him up. It was like super awesome. So I'll get replay in the film room this week. That
Big Dog.
Big Dog.
If you would have guessed that Aaron Rodgers' only touchdown against the Dolphins in a game that the Packers won went to Mercedes Lewis in a, not just like a goal line touchdown, that was a wheel route, and it was like, we've been on Rodgers a lot this year for obvious reasons. He had like turn back the clock throws, and that was certainly one of them. I'm just like, it was a perfect in his catch radius. Some controversy on the broadcast about whether it was actually a catch. I don't give a shit. It was a touchdown.
Do not care.
He caught it. The Packers won. That's all that matters. But yeah, Mercedes Lewis played a huge role in this game. And that's another, like, to spread it around and to get unlikely contributions and crucial ones at that from a 38-year-old tight end that is your backup tight end. Yeah, that kind of suits where the Packers have to be right now, especially with all the questions about Christian Watson and his hip.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. He caught it. Don't argue with me. So it was like that wheel route catch was so good. And I was really surprised they didn't challenge it. But then, yeah, the fourth, I think it was 4th and goal play at the one where Big Dog just acts like he's going to block.
Yeah.
And then goes out and catches the touchdown. It was so good. And somebody had asked Mercedes Lewis about, like, why, like, when do you think people are going to start covering you near the goal line on these, like, little 1 yard corner routes? And he goes, probably not soon, because the entire point of why those work is that when he does pass block or run block, he blocks with intent. He's He's not just chipping and going. He's really getting out there and blocking.
He's trying to lay it out.
Exactly. And so if you're expecting that really hardcore block from Marcedes Lewis that turns into a chip and a go, it's a lot harder to expect getting that you're going forward to fight off this block, and then he just puts his foot in the ground and goes to the end zone. It's a perfect scheme.
Yeah, well, it works because it is a trick, right? It's like guys in the NBA, like the guy, like the bigs who slip the screen every time. It doesn't work because they're just like, this is what you do. It's kind of the football analogy. The Packers need to stop with the fake going for it on fourth down. I find it to be. I've talked about this on the podcast before. They never do it.
They did go for it on fourth down.
No, but you can tell when they're not going to.
Oh,
They kind of rush up there. I'm like, you're not going to do it. I know you're not, and they don't do it. And it never works because they don't do it. If you want it to work, you have to fake it and actually do it sometimes. Some of their fourth downs were questionable. That one was good, though, because Marcedes Lewis. This was like a game for the skill position guys who block. Did you see?
Yeah.
Numac, did you call out the Patrick Taylor one already?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, that one, and then the Alan Lazard one.
Alan Lazard counting his bodies was one of the coolest.
That was so cool. Like
that's got to be the number. I mean, there can't be much competition. That's got to be the number one most hype clip of a wide receiver blocking of all time. There's no way there's any competition.
It was so awesome. Like, again, it's well documented. My problem with Alan Lazard on this podcast.
That's not
There's one thing he can do well is block. We know this. And he took out 3 Dolphins with 1 block.
And he's
sitting there counting them.
He looks like Steph Curry. Did you see Dan Orlovsky shared the 5 angles of the Patrick Taylor block?
No, I did not see that.
He's going crazy. He's like, well done. He's just pointing at him with a pencil, like, look at this. Look at this. Well done, young fella. I love football guys. Like, out of all the plays in that game, it's like that. He does. I watched it. I watched all the angles. I was like, this is amazing. He's going one way and he sees the rusher and he pivots back to get him and make the play. Like, it is really impressive.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was a good block, and it's stuff that players of his, not gonna say talent level, of where he is on the depth chart. Those are the things that he needs to do well when he gets in, because there's most of the plays that the starters are expected to make. And between his catch for 17 yards and that big block, he's showcasing why he deserves to have some playing time next year, if not in certain spots this year.
I think it was Andy, but it was someone else. Also, apparently, he had a really big block on one of Nixon's kick returns that sprung it and made it possible. Yeah. So, really, as you say, in the reps he gets, which is scattered, not many, and the role he has, which is like doing the dirty work, Patrick Taylor kind of shined for what he was able to do realistically in his role.
Right. So last thing on the Dolphins recap. Keishawn Nixon is the best effing kick returner in the NFL right now. After the 93-yard kick return he had on Sunday, the list of players in the NFL with more kick return yards or yards per kick return than Keishawn Nixon, there's nobody above him. It's just him. Most yards and most yards per kick return. So found money. I definitely think the time for criticizing the coaching staff has passed for not playing him earlier, but they definitely should have been playing him earlier. Could you imagine a time where Aaron Rodgers wasn't back there, and instead we had the firecracker that is Keishawn Nixon? As Jordan said on the last preview pod, he's got a dog in him.
Oh yeah, I was like, did I say something about Aaron Rodgers? Yes, he does.
Well, Keishawn Nixon.
Yeah, Keishawn. Let's again another. What did he leave? The groin injury. I believe he was been bothered by that. So let's hope that's not something that lingers on too much, but it might.
Rodgers said on the McAfee show today.
Yeah, the Aaron Rodgers injury report. I'm sure the Packers love this.
Yeah.
Listen, it's Tuesday, so we don't have an actual injury report. So we don't have one to actually go off of. But
I was reading. He gave so many updates. I was like, why? Right. Why did he do this?
Yeah, he gave one on Keishawn Nixon, who said he felt good and he's gonna try to play this week. He's feeling fine. So we'll see if he actually plays. But then he goes, yeah, we're hoping that David Bakhtiari can get back to practicing and ramp up for this week or something. It's like, do you know how an appendix heals, Aaron Rodgers? Like, you can't just rub ayahuasca on it and like hope it gets better. Like, it's just gone.
I had to do extensive research.
Right. Exactly. So, anything else, boys, before I get into the cheese board?
Aaron Jones. Do we touch on Aaron Jones's weird day? Because you guys were talking about Patrick Taylor.
A lot of conspiracy theories out there.
I didn't hear about any of these.
Well, just that he might be hurt or something because his snap counts is weird.
They kept saying on the broadcast that his ankle injury suffered not the Rams game, the game before. Is that the Bears game?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, because that's what
that's where it started. It. Yep. It has been bothering him, and it certainly shows in his snaps. It certainly shows
6 carries, 2 catches.
Yeah,
it's concerning. The timing of it obviously is like the shitty part of it because it's like AJ Dillon's really coming in his own right now, in part because Jones is hurt. Yeah, and Patrick Taylor will welcome any positive cameos and making winning plays and stuff like that. But it's like Aaron Jones, especially with whatever is going on with Watson. If you don't have Aaron Jones, it's like this fallback, and I know that the Packers usually forget about him, so it's not like they do view him as a fallback sometimes, unfortunately. It's like, as much as like I want to feel like the tide is turning and the good vibes and all that stuff, it's like he is so crucial to like making this a playoff run, even if it's short lived. I don't know. It's tough to like have obviously any opinion on it because everything's just shrouded in mystery. But it's like if Aaron Jones is hurt and you're even more reliant on Dillon and Taylor to fuel your running game, you know, you're going up against the Vikings defense and Lions defense if they're still alive. That like not great, but not terrible. I don't know how like I'm feeling about the next 2 weeks if Aaron Jones still has a bum ankle.
Yeah,
we'll get into it.
Well,
go ahead, Ty.
The rushing game in general just wasn't very effective. I mean, they had 25 carries for 79 yards total. AJ Dillon got more work. He had 36 yards on 11 carries, so 3.3 per. Aaron Jones, 4.2 average. Rodgers got out there and moved a little bit. He had 18 yards on his scrambles. A couple of big ones that moved the chains as well.
Yep.
But
they were good.
80 yards on 25 carries, though, is not ideal. And I mean, the passing game coming along does make up for it a little bit, but against a Vikings team that even if they stop playing football for a full half can still score 30-plus points, I think I agree, Jordan. It's going to be a little tenuous if the run game is having trouble. I think they're going to need to be a more complete offense. So it's nice to see the passing game come along, but hopefully Aaron Jones is good because how many times have we said he's the best offensive player on the team? I think that's still true when he's healthy, although Christian Watson is, I guess, making his case. I think Rodgers has bounced back as the year's gone on, by and large. Not elite, I don't think, but I think right now, like, he's 10th by PFF grade, and I'm like, that sounds about right.
Yeah.
Right.
Somewhere around there. Not top 5, but certainly still kind of where LeBron's at. I'm doing too many NBA comps. I'm sorry.
There's also not a lot of good quarterbacks this year, so let's just put that in context.
Yeah. I mean, now with Geno falling off, it's like the 3 guys you kind of expected, I think, are now back in the top 3, and Mahomes, Josh Allen, and Joe Burrow. And then outside of that, it's like
Jared Goff, Kirk Cousins. That's like kind of where he's at, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Only 1 touchdown per week since the Philly loss. So since that's the bye week, essentially, he's only had 1 touchdown per week.
Yeah.
So he's had other like games, like after the Dallas game with all the touchdowns to Christian Watson. Like during that Christian Watson stretch, he looked a lot better. But just the last 3 weeks, he's looked okay at best. He's had 2 interceptions and 3 touchdowns the last 3 weeks.
Yeah.
So, let's get into the cheese board before we talk about the Vikings matchup this week, because that Aaron Jones part will come into play quite a lot. So, cheese board, as always, wrapping up this recap of the Miami game. First one, and these are all going to be slices of Munster if I can find my stats. First one goes to Jaron Reed. Jaron Reed had a fantastic game. 4 total pressures, including a sack, 1 hit, and 2 hurries, but also forced that fumble and recovered it himself to really start the barrage of turnovers in the second quarter that would transfer over to the second half. Just really coming into his own after been pretty good all year, but 3 tackles to go with it. Just an all-around great game from Jaron Reed. Was also the second highest rated player on PFF for the defense for the Packers this week. Only a 1/10 of a point behind our next Chiefs recipient, Preston Smith, who had 1 sack of his own, another hit from him with 2 total pressures, 4 tackles, and just great. I should say great coverage. He had 1 target for 1 reception for 8 yards, but as we said before, he's just done a really good job filling in for Rashawn Gary to make sure that that pass rush and getting home doesn't fall off with Gary's injury. So the next one goes to Jair Alexander. While his coverage was okay, I'd say, but that's more of a Joe Barry pressure. He did have the big interception, and looks like he only had 53 yards put up for him on the when he was in coverage. So overall, just a nice day. And if you get a pick, especially in a crucial moment like that, you'll end up getting a cheese. And so I got to find my last cheese recipient. Oh yeah, Devondre Campbell, of course. Another great game. This one is basically for being the field general on that pick, because that was like the flashiest play I think I've seen from a green dot in quite some time. I coach at the middle linebacker position, and just what a great play. And keep that turnover, I guess. Keep the turnovers coming, essentially.
Yeah.
And just get the Packers the ball back for a chance to keep winning the game. So,
real quick before we do Vikings, can I share a Preston Smith stat that I saw tweeted that I thought was interesting?
You most certainly can.
This is from Zach Jacobson at It's Zachary J, who covers the Packers for CBS Sports. So it's one of those, sometimes like stats are so uniform, it's like funny, like this is one of them. So this is Preston Smith's sacks by year, starting in 2015, 8, 4.5, 8, 4, 12, 4, 9. So he pretty much was like having his sacks every other year. And I know sacks aren't a perfect metric, but the production was so on and off. What Zach was pointing out is that this year is nice because it broke that trend. So 2021, he had 9 sacks. Now he's up to 8.5 this season. So for the first time in his career, 2 near double-digit sack totals, which is just, it's nice to see from Preston, who I think maybe we don't talk about as much, but has been like pretty consistently good and important all season.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Even more so as the season's kind of turned around. Like you talk about wanting your veteran guys to kind of rally the troops a little bit. He's been quietly doing that. Like obviously the production is there, but I just feel like his presence after losing Gary, as all eyes are on Rashawn Gary, and just seeing him like break out even more. Just to have that steadying presence there, and he was 2 years ago, as everybody was like thinking that he might be a cut casualty, and you see Zadarius Smith lead through his own cut casualty last year, and they made the decision to stick with Preston. They reworked his contract, all that stuff, and he's done everything that they wanted him to do across different coaching regimes too. So like they brought him in when he was part of that big free agency frenzy a couple years ago, and to see, like you said, like see him kind of break that trend of like all or nothing, or like one good year but one bad year. Yeah, he's been very good for them. Definitely down the stretch here.
Exactly. Yeah, absolutely. So the cheese board after 16 games, not mistaken. Yeah.
Yes.
16 games. Aaron Jones leading the way still with 10. Preston Smith coming up on him at 6. Devondre Campbell 5. AJ Dillon 5. Christian Watson 5. Jair Alexander, Keishawn Nixon, Rashawn Gary all have 4. Elton Jenkins, John Runyon, Kenny Clark, Quay, Romeo Dobbs, Rudy Ford all have 3. Aaron Rodgers, Bakhtiari, Pat O'Donnell, Randall Cobb, Russell Douglas, Jaron Reed, and Zach Tom all have 2. And then Al Lazard, Eric Stokes, Darnell Savage, Devontae Wyatt, Josh Myers, Chris Barnes, Mason Crosby, Bobby Tunyon, Sammy Watkins and Josh Nijman all have 1. And of course, Joe Barry still has -1 because he will not earn his cheese ever.
Well, it'd be nice.
Did you see that big hug that LaFleur had with him after the game?
I did see the big hug. I
Hug watch.
Before we get on to Vikes, real quick, congratulations to Mason Crosby becoming, I think, the all-time games played leader or consecutive games played leader.
Yep.
So
he was really good, by the way, in this game.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yes, he was.
Best performance this year? Maybe outside of it's either that or the Tampa game.
What do you have? 4 made field goals and 2 PATs? Or no, 1 PAT, right?
Yeah. No, 2.
2.
Yeah.
Because a big dog and AJ Dillon scored.
Yeah, you're right. Also, it's 16 weeks, 15 games. 2 to go.
Yeah.
Thank you. Appreciate you. So yeah, getting into the preview for the Vikings. Injury report we kind of went over earlier. We don't have an actual injury report from the team yet, so really all we know is that hopefully Keishawn plays. Hopefully Bakhtiari is wrapping up to play this week or next week. It would help next week if he could be opposite of the Detroit Lions first round pick, whose name Aiden Hutchinson. That'd be nice. That'd be nice to have against that pass rush. But other than that, we won't talk too much about injuries. Hopefully Aaron Jones isn't on there. I'm sure he will be though.
And Watson.
And Watson will be important to see how his hip is doing. He was in street clothes in the second half, so that's not too encouraging, but we'll see. Other than that, perfect weekend of outcomes for the Packers. Commanders, Giants, Seahawks, and Lions all lost, as we touched on at the beginning. So that puts the opportunity to play, like Ty said, for the Packers to go 8-9 and possibly get them sneak into the playoffs, but we shall see. But let's hop right into it with offense, defense. I guess let's start with that offense, because with Aaron Jones being hurt, or being secretly hurt, as we're thinking with the conspiracy theories, if he can play, it'll be really important he plays, because teams are finding success against this Vikings defense. It's not good, like at all. They're good at creating turnovers, but they allow a lot of yards. I think they lead the league in yards allowed, or no, they're second behind the Lions in yards allowed this year, which is absolutely crazy. It's something like
Packers offense better move the ball these last 2 weeks, is what I'm hearing.
Exactly.
So let's just do a stat stroll. This is what I'm going to call it. Points for the Vikings, 378, 25.2 points per game, 7th in the NFL.
Pretty good.
Points against, 373, so a point differential of 5. 24.9 points allowed per game, 28th in the NFL.
Yeah, it's not.
Their expected win-loss, not to go nerdy here, but expected win-loss based on those points and everything, 7.6 and 7.4. So they're essentially a 500 team, but they're 12-3 and have had all these crazy. I think even I was in and out of watching the Vikings Giants game, because I think that was on Christmas Eve.
Yep.
They are 10-0 in 1-score games this year or something like that. So every game is essentially coming down the wire for them. And they're incredibly successful, lucky, whatever you want to call it, in how they somehow do all this stuff.
Yeah.
And I don't know. It's similar to how we talk, or how the Packers are being talked about in LaFleur's first year, where their defense is really holding them together. Their offense wasn't coming or clicking the same way that a lot of people envisioned when LaFleur came to Green Bay. But yet they have Justin Jefferson, Kirk Cousins, for all the stuff that I will say about Kirk Cousins and countless others will do. He's a solid NFL quarterback.
Yeah.
Dalvin Cook is an above average running back, can be a top 10 running back when healthy and, fire on all cylinders.
Having a great year.
Yeah, having a great year. Even Madison, his backup, has been a thorn on the Packers side, as we saw earlier this year.
Mm-hmm.
There's still weapons to be feared, but it's also like this everything about the Vikings just feels so lightning in a bottle, leaky beyond measure. Just like can the Packers just break that magic that the Vikings seem to have conjured for some damn reason? I don't know.
Right.
I think the word you're looking for is fraudulent on the Vikings, by the way.
Oh, my.
I mean, I'm saying they beat the Bills. I'll give them that. Part of the weird, like that part of the season when Josh Allen just didn't play well, and they beat the Bills. Yeah. The Bills should have won that game, which is true for a lot of teams the Vikings lost to. Yep. And then they beat the Dolphins without Tua, who, now that looks less impressive because they've lost all their games in December. But it's, beat the Dolphins. That's nice. Beat Teddy Bridgewater Dolphins. And Skylar Thompson played a little bit in that game as well. And then their next best win is either one of the New York teams or the Packers.
Right.
Like when they play actually good teams, they got stomped.
Yeah, they got stomped by the Vikings or by the Eagles week 2.
And the Cowboys.
Yeah. But they are still in the hunt for the first seed, technically.
Yep.
So they're not.
Yeah, if they win out, I think if the Eagles lose both, then they can get the 1 seed. But
which is a conversation because of Jalen Hurts' injury.
Yeah,
exactly.
Correct.
Although Minshew's solid.
He's solid. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. They should have won that game on Christmas or on Christmas Eve. Yeah. So, but yeah, we touched on like that the defense. It's so bad. They have allowed the most passing yards this season. If I can find the tab. Apparently I can't find a tab. They lead the league in passing yards allowed, which is not good. 4,222, which is leading the way by 20 yards above the Titans and then 80 yards ahead of the Lions. So the one thing they're good at doing is creating turnovers. Like that's definitely their specialty. They are middle of the pack, 8th in turnovers. Cowboys have 30 and leading the league, and the Vikings have 23. So if you can withhold the turnovers, there's a chance for you just to really rub the score on this Vikings defense. I mean, like if the Colts can put up 33 on the Vikings, the Packers should be able to do something similar. Like that's the biggest thing. And I hate getting into this territory because it just really leads into the expectations of a big game. Like we had with the Lions game, Jordan, where it's like their Lions defense is really bad. And look what happens. So here's to hoping that Aaron Jones can play, because like a part of the big reason the Cowboys beat the bricks off of them was Tony Pollard had a great day catching the ball in the backfield. Like, so if the pass catching running backs can really do something worthwhile and be impact, I think that'll be a huge game changer for the Vikings or for the Packers.
Yeah. It's as we talked about the Dolphins game, and the Packers did it so great or fantastically. Spreading the ball around and just kind of making sure that no one person gets the lion's share of targets and just gets keyed in by the defense, even as faulty as the Vikings defense is. That'll be key. And again, a lot of that hinges on whether Aaron Jones, what does he look like on Sunday? Is Christian Watson available? As you said, was in street clothes for the second half. So not really. It would be kind of a miracle if he plays. But again, this Packers offense, I should say, they were still moving the ball in the second half. They didn't score as many points as they should have, frankly. And it's just a matter of can they turn that tide against the defense that will allow plenty of points, even against maligned opponents. Like you said, the Colts game is, no one will forget that because of just how great that comeback was. But
Vegas in that history.
Yeah, the Colts were still scored 33 points at halftime, and they're not starting the quarterback that anymore.
Yeah, there was some, I think, a special teams and a defensive touchdown in there. So that game, it wasn't actually all on the Vikings. It was more, it's just a weird game.
Yeah.
Man. The Vikings get in these games. So, I mean, I guess I guess a close game would be better than what we saw last time, right? That was really one of their one of, if not the only Vikings game where they won by more than a score was week 1.
Right.
That is a good. Let me go through that right now.
There might be
I
one
have
more,
it up too
but
if you
it's
to Jordan.
I think that's their only win, their only convincing win in terms of the
Yeah. They beat the Dolphins by 8. But that's like you
that's
said.
still one score.
That is true. That is still only one score. 7, 4, 6, 2, 7, 5, 1.
That is the only.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm reading the wrong column. 4, 3, 7, 8, 8, 3, 3.
Yeah.
Lost big to the Cowboys. Then 7, 5.
Yep.
Lost. Yeah.
I mean, the Packers should be in a better position to not have that. I think it's going to come down to the Packers' defense, to be honest. I feel the offense is figuring some things out. This might be the game. This might be the game that actually gets Joe Barry fired. Like, if they get eliminated this week, Justin Jefferson has 300 yards because they just let him run around and he's faster than everyone in the secondary and he's running and they're set and he just torches the Packers. That was the frustrating thing about the first matchup is like Kirk Cousins is one of those QBs that he'll beat you if you let him. Like, that's what he does.
Yeah.
But if he sits back there and there's no pressure and guys are open, he's going to make the throws. This could end up being an infuriating game if that happens again.
Right. And to put into context, that 300 yards would put Justin Jefferson damn close to breaking the record. Justin Jefferson having a phenomenal year, 1,756 yards. The record is 1964. Or no, so 300 would put him over. Mm-hmm. So he really needs just like 200 and I think 20-ish yards.
Just 220. Although against the Packers, it is kind of just
200. They play the Packers and the Bears.
Yeah.
He's like he's for all intents and purposes should break that record unless Joe Barry pulls a rabbit out of his ass that somehow stops Justin Jefferson from having a big game, because like that was the biggest thing was he had just such a huge game.
9 receptions, 184 yards, and 2 touchdowns. And he beat the Packers. Like, he outscored the Packers by himself in that game.
Should be the MVP. If the Vikings are the...
Oh.
It's true.
Over Jalen Hurts? Or Patrick Mahomes?
See, I'm more willing... Like, I thought Cooper Kupp should have won it last year. I'm sorry, Packers faithful. But like,
oh, you're specialist.
Well, it's just like
voting.
Yeah,
no, I agree. I agree.
I see the case.
Yeah.
If Hurts, if the Vikings get the top seed, I agree with you, Jordan.
Thank you. Yeah, Hurts would be the other, and obviously Mahomes is just Mahomes. So, but yeah, I think that's the top 3 for me.
Worth noting that this is the most that Kirk Cousins has been sacked in his career this year. And so I think it's like 44 times. Not career. I think just
Vikings
in
tenure.
Yeah, it is Vikings tenure.
He played for the Commanders. He's probably gotten hit.
Yeah,
a bit.
I was gonna say.
Yeah,
I remember seeing him on his ass on the ground for a while. Playing for the Commanders.
I gotta see now because I'm pretty sure. I think it actually like legitimately might be his career high right now. Yeah, it is. He's at 44. And it's his career high in sacks. He had 41. 41 is last year in Washington, and 40 his second to last, or his first year in Minnesota. But
wow.
I think it's worth noting that I'm trying to get to the actual like the first game to see how many he took that first game against the Packers, because I felt like they weren't getting home at all, and that's why he could just sit back there and do it. Yeah, he dropped back 32 times and was sacked once. Yeah. And so like that's why they beat him. Like there wasn't a lot of coverage sacks or just throwing the ball away. It was Kirk Cousins sitting in the pocket, not having to scramble or anything, and just throwing the ball at Justin Jefferson for 30 yards and for 40 yards and touchdowns. Like, if the Packers front 7 can really get home, and what I really think I liked pulling from this Miami game was their use of rushing 5, not 4. Yep. Because that's been their thing all year long, was rushing Kenny Clark and Jaron Reed in the middle, and then Kingsley Enagbare and Preston Smith as of late, like those 2 on the edge, not Rashawn Gary, Preston Smith, because he's hurt. But just using the two edge rushers to rush 4 every single time. It's technically a blitz because they run a 3-4 defense, but it's what they do every single time. It's not a true blitz.
Yeah, it's not a blitz if you call it a 4-3. So
yeah,
well, yeah, but that's not technically what they run.
No,
and so it's a blitz in the eyes of like the stat people.
I don't think it is. Isn't if it's just the guys
I think so.
on the
I think
line?
I think so. I think the Packers technically blitz at the highest rate in the NFL because of that.
Oh, that's hilarious.
Yeah. But like they were rushing 5 in this Miami game and a little bit in the Rams game. And I think that's where could be, to use another phrase I used earlier, found money. Is just that if Jair and Rasul can do their part to play Justin Jefferson well, I really think that rushing 5 against this not good Vikings line could be big in this game, especially if it's supposed to be cold and rainy on Sunday in Green Bay.
I was going to mention, I mean, the Vikings are
meteorologist Jordan Treske.
Yes, I won't go in yet. I won't go too far in advance because the forecast will probably change. But Vikings are a dome team. They play all their home games in a dome. Kirk Cousins, to my knowledge, not really great in the elements. Not really great in a lot of ways, but he's a quarterback for the Vikings at this juncture. And as you mentioned, it's a different Packers pass rush from the first week of the season. And the O-line for the Vikings, I feel like the Vikings have always just had like a shoddy offensive line. It's always been like their big, like, we have to improve it. Kind of like the Colts were with like Andrew Luck.
Yeah.
It's like, just protect the quarterback. And obviously football is a game of attrition, and offensive linemen just really are, unless you're the Packers until this year, teams have injuries always on the line. And the more you get pressed that way, you're not going to look that great come December, come January and all that stuff. So I think for me, like, it's obviously going to be based on how this game is and how they're going to be able to play in, whatever weather it's going to be. It's Green Bay on New Year's Day, so it's going to be really crappy, regardless. But I think that's going to be a factor. You never know how like players react to it, and that obviously, goes two ways. It goes to the Packers, and can they break that immortal? They're a cold team, but they don't play well in the cold. As we've seen over the last few years, especially in the playoffs.
Exactly. What I think is so funny and just kind of speaks to how good a running back Dalvin Cook is. He's always played behind a bad line, but since he came into the league in 2017, 6,000 yards in 6 seasons, just about. Like, that's crazy. His first 2 years, he was hurt his first year, only played 4 games, played 10 games or 11 games the second year. But then since 2019, played 14 games, so not a complete season, 1,100 yards, 14 games again in 2020, 1,500 yards, 1,100 yards last year in 13 games, and through 15 games this year, he has 1,100 yards again. Like, he's a monster of a running back, and really going to need a full game for the defense, like you said, Ty. This could get the game that gets Joe Barry fired. If any of the Vikings have a huge game that knock them out of the playoffs, whether it be the run defense stinks or Justin Jefferson breaks the record, any of that kind of stuff, and kicks them out of the playoffs, I think that's the knife in the coffin for Joe Barry.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be, if Zadarius Smith has more sacks than the non-Rashawn Gary Packers again, that's going to be bad. Rashawn Gary was obviously the one who got the 1 sack. He's not going to play, so I think the line overall has played better, but they're without, one hell of a player. So I think it's going to be a lot in the trenches on both sides. And then does Jair get to cover Justin Jefferson? I'm not going to hold my breath, but just the whole scheme will be obviously under a microscope, I think, from the first Vikings offensive snap.
Right. Another added wrinkle to the Vikings offense, they traded for TJ Hawkinson, who's been really good for him.
Yeah.
Really, really good for him. Like, it's amazing what I was really high on TJ Hawkinson when he got drafted. Like, I just really like him as a tight end. But it's amazing, like, what a competent offense can do for a guy like TJ Hawkinson, because he just adds that dynamic player to throw to when Justin Jefferson is covered, Dalvin Cook isn't running the ball. Like, it's gonna be a big assignment for whoever covers them, probably Devondre or Keishawn Nixon or one of the safeties. So it'll be big for him. It's going to be a tough game on Sunday. Like, this will be the bellwether of whether or not they deserve to make it into the playoffs.
Oh, absolutely. And I mean, it just matters more when you're playing against a division opponent, the one that is leaps and bounds better than you, even with all the stats and all that aside. They have just been better than Packers all year long. Like, no question about it.
They've had the it factor, I'd say. Like, they have that stuff that makes them want to win. They don't roll over.
Yeah, exactly. Like, that's the thing. Like, I mean, again, as much as I just shit on Kirk Cousins on both sides of my mouth, we still have Justin Jefferson, Dalvin Cook, TJ Hawkinson, as you mentioned. That was a big, big addition for them before the trade deadline. Even Zadarius Smith is having a really good year. Patrick Peterson has made game-winning plays for them. There's still like enough there. Like, their top-end talent is really holding this all together for them in a lot of ways. And just to have that, like, that's what puts the fear of life in you when you watch these games and going into them. And it's like, that's why it could be like, Packers are doing good, but they still have to cover Justin Jefferson. And it, it doesn't hinge on just him too. That's the problem. It's like, we're going through all these options, and you could still have a guy like, I don't know, name
Osborne.
KJ Osborne. And that's exactly
recently,
Yeah. And it's like, that's still like, they know how to utilize their weapons, and that's still why they are where they are this year.
Yeah, and as much as we laugh at the Vikings point differential, it's like, okay, throw stones in glass houses. I mean, the Packers are minus 21. So, they're
it's
going
a lot
up
better
against
than recent weeks too.
Yeah, exactly. So, after this winning streak, they're up to minus 21 on the year. So
I still think that says more about the Vikings than does the Packers, because the Packers are still have a losing record.
No, I agree, but it's just like, it's still the point is like, it's still going up against a team that's been better this season. Even if we agree their record is inflated, whatever their record should be, it should be better than whatever the Packers' record is based on point differential. So
correct,
they're gonna have the Packers need to prove it this week.
And they've made plays when they mattered most. They made the comeback. They came back against the Bills. They
the Buffalo Bulls.
The Bulls. Like that, for whatever that means, anything, the it factor, the clutch factor, it means something for this Vikings team, and it has meant something in the playoffs.
Also,
all right.
No, sorry, just. This could be the Packers' playoff opponent if they do make it. So even more intrigue.
Yes.
Like we said, they could end up 1, but if they end up 2 and the Packers are 7, that would be first round, these two teams again in Minnesota. So plenty of intrigue on the field this week.
If the Vikings lose out, which I don't think happens because they play the
Bears.
The Bears in week 18, they could be the 3 seed behind the Niners. Because I believe.
Oh, good. There's a team the Packers have no postseason. I think I'd rather see the Vikings.
I'd rather see the Vikings, but I think, like, without a doubt, the Packers can only get the 7th seed, right? Like, they can only get the 7. So, that with all that being said, they could face the Niners rather than the Vikings. But I'm with you, Ty. I'd rather face the Vikings if we get there.
Yeah, we gotta get there first.
We gotta get there first.
We
got a 99% sure win this week to have a chance, but we'll see. Yeah. I'm trying to look through my notes. I think that's really all I had. We've been going for an hour.
Do we have a live number for the Packers playoff odds? Do we have that?
A live number?
30-something%, I think.
30-something%.
After the Dolphins game.
It's climbing. That's climbing.
It just about doubled. I think it was 17 going in.
That's right. Yes. Yeah.
We have a couple minutes to spare. I want to say one thing. We need Aaron Rodgers to have a good game this week. Like, I feel like he hasn't had a good game against the Vikings in a long time, and I really just want to see, like, no turnovers, 2 or 3 touchdowns, and just like a nice game. Because if he has like a nice, tight, concise game, which has been hard to come by this year, they have a really good chance of winning this game. If they don't, or if he doesn't, I think they lose this game pretty easy. But yeah, because going back to the Miami game, he had not great time throwing down the field. Like he was underthrowing a lot of balls. Like he had the nice one to Big Doug and Alan Lazard, but then he underthrew the ball to Alan Lazard in the interception, missed another guy down the side. Yeah, Watson, like he's just like as tired, and we all talked about really early on the season that deep ball hasn't been there, and it needs to be there to beat this Minnesota defense. Like I wouldn't even be opposed to running that Christian Watson first play again. Make him defend it. Like I'm sure they'll look for it, but just run it, see what happens.
Yeah.
The Packers are favored going in, by the way, for what it's worth. About a field goal.
Like 2.5, yeah, 3.5.
Field goal. 2.5.
I feel like, yeah, that's usually standard.
Yeah, that's a division game.
Division game, Vikings point differential in Lambeau. I think all that stuff coming together. Yeah.
Elements, yeah. Alrighty. Players to watch, boys. Ty, the special guest of honor. I'll let you go first.
One on each team? How are we doing this?
One on each team. If you want, I can go first. You can think about it, whichever you want.
I'll go. I'm going to say for the Packers, I think if he plays, honestly, it's Keishawn Nixon. I think they need that field position advantage. And if they can start a couple of drives in or near field goal range, I think that could make the difference. So I'll say Keishawn Nixon for the Packers side. No offense or defense, special teams. I broke the rule maybe.
That's fine.
On the Vikings side, I'll leave you guys to some of the fun offensive players. I know Numac has a Dalvin Cook shrine, it sounds like, somewhere.
It's not a shrine. It's just a recognition of this dude is good. Like, he hasn't played a full 16-game season ever and gets over 1,000 yards in his last four seasons.
If we were talking about running backs overachieving their offensive lines, I'm pretty sure Derrick Henry has more yards after contact than he has yards this season. Think about that. Think about that. I think that is actually true. But for the Vikings, I'll say Za'Darius. I feel like he gets fired up for this matchup. He clearly hates the Packers. And I think oh my God, I almost said Favre. I think Rodgers, yeah, that's not even a joke, not even intentional. But I think Rodgers is susceptible to taking some bad sacks, as we saw in the Miami game. If it's anything like most Vikings game, this could be close. So I think containing Za'Darius will be big. For Favre, I mean, that one was on purpose. Wow.
Go ahead, Jordan.
Packers. I'm going to go Preston Smith. This is not the answer that I was anticipating saying, but Ty convinced me. If you want the Packers to create turnovers, create havoc defensively, while still allowing 5 incompletions, you need pass rushes. And Preston Smith has been doing it. You need someone to anchor this defense, get home, just make life miserable for Kirk Cousins. I think Preston Smith is going to be very key to that. And the Packers just need something going defensively, especially with all the weapons that the Vikings have. And that leads me to, I'm not going to go the obvious one because I'm sure Numac can easily answer that. Do I go Dalvin Cook here? Would you rather me say Dalvin Cook here?
You pick what your heart desires.
I'll say Dalvin Cook because as we talked about the rush defense, last week was that was an anomaly.
Yeah.
Even with, inferior running backs than compared to Dalvin Cook. We could talk about Justin Jefferson. We could talk about TJ Hawkinson. If the Vikings get more than 100 yards in the ground, it's probably going to win them the game. They have the better rushing offense going into the game too. Like I just feel more certain about what we're going to see out of them than Aaron Jones is kind of hurt. AJ Dillon has been on the come up, but like it's still he's fighting for every yard that he's getting. You know what I mean? There's just a different kind of something there than like just watching the Packers run offense just kind of like inch by inch by inch, rather than Dalvin Cook just rattle off 200 yards and be like, oh, that's kind of what I expect from the Packers run defense.
I'd be shocked if they didn't have 100 yards rushing, like the Vikings didn't. Like I think they can keep them to 100 yards rushing and win the game. The Packers can, but it's like the big plays essentially. Like they can't be letting off 40, 50-yard runs multiple times during the game,
and
which
the
I think is going to be
carries it takes to get there, right? Like if they're 20 carries, 120 yards, you might be cooked. Make it difficult to get there.
Agreed. My players to watch are going to be the quarterbacks, I'm cheating a little bit because I can. Jair and Russell Douglas are going to be one of my Packers players to watch because it's going to matter how they cover my other player, Justin Jefferson. Like that matchup is the game this week.
Mm-hmm.
If they can hold Justin Jefferson to having a mediocre game to an okay game,
140
that'll be
yards.
huge. Listen, the stat part is you're like pretty much right.
Yeah.
That'll be huge for them having a chance to win the game. If they let him go off and break the record, then that'll be that. And so that's really the matchup of me watching all game long to see if they're double covering him to make TJ Hawkinson, Dalvin Cook, and KJ Osborne beat him, and just see what they do because they're really going to need to stop Justin Jefferson to even have a chance to win the game.
If at any point he's running in open space before, during, or after the ball is thrown, the Joe Barry's failed. Like that, it's that simple.
Yeah.
It just can't happen. It's going to happen, but it just can't happen.
If they trot out a zone coverage against them this game, I'm gonna like pull my hair out, claw my eyes out, all that good stuff.
Packers safety play this week is. I mean, the corners are more important. The safeties are going to be big too.
Yeah, we need
Rudy Ford,
Adrian
Amos. Darnell Savage had a highly graded game from PFF last week, so we'll see. I don't know.
It takes a village to stop Justin Jefferson, as it turns out.
It takes a village.
It takes a village to tell Joe Barry, stop zoning.
Yeah. Hopefully Jerry Gray can light a fire under their ass this week to really play up to how they need to, because no one else will.
Hopefully he can coach the defense this week. Like, that would work too.
That would work just fine. All right, folks, that's it for us.
No, wait.
Score predictions. Score predictions. Oh, we almost forgot Rohan's favorite part. Score predictions.
Ooh.
I'll go first and we'll go in reverse order. Oh, it's tough. I really don't. We predicted they lose last week, so I'm gonna predict they lose again. 34-24 Vikings.
Jordan?
I think.
30. Did you say 34-24 Vikings? So not a one-score game?
Nope.
I'm going to make this a one-score game. I think it's going to be, let's go 23-20.
Oof.
Vikings.
Grind it out, just like last week.
I'm here to be the homer.
All right.
I'm going to go. I'm trying to think of which one of these scores is the most probable. Give me 1 second. I'm thinking.
I'm thinking.
28-27 Packers.
Oh.
Just a ridiculous game. It's got to be. I think it's got to be.
It's going to be the most stress-induced game ever.
Yeah. It's like a missed PAT or something is what. I don't know what 27 is like. Something weird happens to the Vikings. In the elements.
To pull back the curtain, if you're watching the YouTube, I'm not in my basement. I'm at my in-laws' place in Minnesota. My wife is from Minnesota.
Enemy territory.
I'm in enemy territory, wearing a green and gold Minnesota Wild shirt. I think if they miss on a missed PAT, or if they win on a missed PAT from the Vikings, I might have to make a run for it.
You might not make it back.
I might not make it back. So, all right, folks, that does it for us. A couple of promotions times. As always, visit gspn.info to get all the great podcasting, latest and greatest on the GSPN network. gspn.info. You can find Make Time for This, Talk for Tundra, Cruising for a Bruising, 1 in 6, and Eurostep there, along with the survey. Ty, if I'm mistaken, the survey is still open, correct?
Yeah. Go take the survey, folks.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we really want you guys to go take that survey. We really care about what our listeners think about the programming we have on the network. And so go take it. Really enjoy it. Takes about, 3-4 minutes, Ty?
Yeah, it depends how many pods you've listened to. We only ask you about the ones you listen to. But yeah, it takes, 10 minutes if you really think about it, but not long at all, for sure.
Yeah.
Probably less than 10 minutes most of the time, to be honest.
Right. But then I believe, if I'm not mistaken, Ty, you are recording Eurostep tomorrow to release on Thursday.
It'll probably just go up tomorrow because we got 1 in 6 later this week as well. So a lot of Bucks coverage for once, more fun to talk about the Packers than the Bucks in a given week. Which
at least this year. I think at least this year.
Yeah, for once this year. Yeah. Good call.
That's nice. And then 1 in 6 is recording soon, right, Jordan?
Yes. Later in the week. Still figure out. I believe it will be recorded Thursday morning. Then we'll figure out the release situation. But yeah,
gotcha. And then make time for this. Just released a new episode pre-Christmas. These are just words to me. I don't know who any of this stuff is, but Noah Baumbach, bombastic white noise adaptation.
Yep.
And
obviously,
their top 5 of his filmography. Andrew Adam broke down his filmography, so go listen to that.
They had to stop me from coming on because I said it's top 12 or nothing. And they said, we don't have time. And only 5 Noah Baumbach films. I said, no, I won't do it.
They could not.
Yeah.
They could not make time for Ti. I make time for this. So yeah, go check out all of the pods on GX.info. Take the survey. And as always, thank you for listening. We will get back at you guys in the new year, last pod of the 2022
New
year.
Year's resolutions, guys.
Oh God, I literally, Jordan, last night I was like, we should do a New Year's resolution section of this pod, and I was like, nah, we won't do it, and now we're gonna do it. New Year's resolution: fire Joe Barry.
Yeah, I was literally gonna say the same. They need to. They just need to.
They just need to.
It is a good New Year's resolution. It's like they need to do that.
It's something that I feel bad like being so on board with, but when it takes like your assistant coach, like your cornerbacks coach to rile a position coach to get the defense like hyped up and get going, it says a lot about your leadership at that defensive coordinator position.
Also, like most of the things that we've been like, oh, that was pretty good, Joe Barry. It comes out later. Like Matt LaFleur was like, hey, do this.
Yeah.
Like, what has he done? What's he accomplished at all?
Nothing.
And also, his players are upset about captains and stuff.
Yeah.
So the morale sucks. It's like, congrats. I mean, it's like I don't feel good calling for someone's job, but it's like you're bad.
Yeah.
I think it's just when the results are plainly obvious to see. I mean, the margin for error, quite specifically, is thin.
Yeah.
And when, like, as we talked about the Dolphins game, or obviously a couple of weeks ago with the Eagles game, the Packers could do everything they could do possible offensively, and it's still like, well, shrug your shoulders with the defense. Like, you know what to expect, and it still disappoints you.
Right. So,
my New Year's resolution.
I forgot we had Jordan. I was trying to wrap up. Go ahead, Jordan.
Sorry. You won't be able to wrap up. This is the inside joke. Jordan Love, I want to see you start for the Packers in the 2023 season. Kidding.
And that is a very on-brand way to end the podcast.
Wow.
We'll be back with you guys in the new year. I appreciate both of you and all of you listeners for joining us. Thank you, Jordan, and thank you, Ti.
Thank you.
Thank you.